Void Fraction, A Journey Through Limestone, with artists Julie Upmeyer and Mary Rose Pritchard. We'll be showing some ways in which we've combined geology and art. This doesn't require a lot of resources. The basis to our experience has been that of our own bodies, what our eyes have seen, what our hands have felt, what our weight has compressed. This can be done at any scale, from the pebbles in the park to the bricks and stones that make up your house. What can you do, and how does this tell a story? I'll show you the path we have taken, how we have approached the natural materials that surrounds us. This is a case study of our ongoing artistic project, Void Fraction. It's a three-way collaboration between two artists and a material, limestone. It's fueled by our curiosity, a look through a limestone lens. It is our experience of the material, where it came from, what it can do, and what we can do with it. We are interested in the idea of permeability, both physically and conceptually. This led us to the project's title, Void Fraction, which is the measurement of porosity of a given material. It began with the imposing walls of Caernarfon Castle in North Wales, which we quickly discovered was made of limestone. Over the last 4 years, the project has produced a series of field trips, sculptures, actions, experiments, performances, installations, and many projects within projects, expanding outwards in a fractal-like motion. Part 1. At the Quarry. As the limestone walls of Caernarfon Castle was our first point of reference, we travelled to the source, visiting the last active limestone quarry on Anglesey, Quarry in Mulvera. We had gone there, of course, to look at limestone, and we did try. What really caught our attention was the giant, inexplicably white mountain, and at its base, a creamy, vast, equally white pool. What was this? We were smitten. We learned subsequently that the addictive and utterly lovely white cream and the mountain of chalky powder was indeed limestone dust, also known as limestone powder, limestone flour, a byproduct of the quarrying process that goes by any number of different names, depending on its purpose and context. We learned that the large quarried stones were brought from an open quarry to the saw to be cut into slabs and blocks. This is done by a very large blade and a lot of water, which lubricates the blade and collects the dust. The runoff from this process is what we had referred to as the pool. The water evaporates and sinks into the ground, leaving a smooth and almost porcelain-like material. A few times a year, the pool is dug out and piled up to form the mountain, a two-story pile of almost pure calcium carbonate. On subsequent visits to the quarry, we learned more and interacted more, became braver in our actions and more specific in our questions. We played, acting on spontaneous ideas. We brought new tools and saw how they worked, learning what the material and also our bodies could do. What would happen if we got into the pool? Walked on the pool? Would I sink? Can the surface be disturbed by the tossing of a large stone? Can we carve into the mountain? How is it to dig? How heavy is a shovelful? Is it vulnerable to flowing water? What's it like in the rain? Part 2. In the studio. We took a few buckets of the creamy limestone paste home with us and experimented in our respective studios. How quickly does it dry out? Can we control or guide the cracking pattern by changing the thickness of the layer? We mixed it with wax in an attempt to strengthen it. It held its shape but lost its bright white color. We mixed it with honey and with oil. We dripped it onto terracotta tiles, slathered it onto copper, and layered it up on bare soil. We noticed its reactions. Holding it in our hands, it seems to repel the water almost on a cellular level. It seems to sweat, pushing it out to the surface as it's compressed. We waited, using small sections of time in an attempt to understand it as an agent of change, observing the material in various states of being over weeks and months, understanding the material's relationship to compression, erosion, and moisture. While drying, we noticed it wanting to reform itself into rock-like striations, layering and splitting apart in smooth plains. We started to look at the world through the limestone lens, looking at our past and future, with limestone as the way to look at time, landscape, and the relationships within and between societies. Part 3, in the gallery. It was only when we started talking seriously about our upcoming exhibition that we fully appreciated that stones have serious weight. We had things to consider that we hadn't ever before. How much weight can the gallery floor hold? How much can our cars actually carry? What is a ton? And how exactly do we measure it? We came to appreciate that quarrying was a much slower process without the use of diggers and large-scale equipment. With branching questions always at hand, we focused. What was within our capacity as two humans? And what was within the gallery's capacity as a single physical space? We settled on a delivery of 1 ton of limestone dust and agreed we would allow ourselves to use the stones that we ourselves could handle, a series of 1- and 2-person limestones. We used material directly from the quarry, limestone dust and limestone offcuts. We created arrangements that visually and conceptually reference the actions that happened at the quarry: the cutting of the blade, the pooling of liquid limestone, the piling high of the compressed limestone powder. We created a series of sculptures combining stone and photography, using the cut faces as a window into our actions and discoveries at the quarry. The conversations that the work inspired branched outwards, backwards in time, to the tropical, watery landscape from which the Carboniferous limestone came, to thinking about the far future, when all of human civilization might be compressed into a variable, stony conglomerate deep within the earth. Part 4, in the landscape. When our time at the gallery was done, the materials we had used were unleashed back into the world. The 1 ton of limestone powder was shared between our 2 studios. We took the powder outside to interact with the wind, rain, and soil. The labor behind the movement of the heavy stones was something we were interested to explore as a performance. We commandeered a disused concrete vessel on our local beach. We covered it in limestone paste and powder and proceeded to fill it up, stone by stone. With 2 stones each, 1 at our front and 1 at the back, we walked from my studio through the community woodlands to the beach, placing the stones in the vessel, then returning to the studio free of weight. We experienced the weight of the stones as we walked, how we adjusted our gait and way of walking, the speed, the sense of purposefulness accentuated by our bright orange jumpsuits and synchronized steps. Limestone. If you would have asked me to tell you something about limestone before this project attacked us, I would have vaguely been able to tell you that it's a good stone for building, it's used for aggregate, and it has something to do with concrete. Now I see limestone almost everywhere I go. I speculate about the lives of brachiopods. I pick up stones at the beach I would have previously passed by. I wonder what is below me and worry about the brevity of my life. I think about my placement in the landscape, how my height and orientation affects my interpretation of what I see. Looking through the limestone lens, I see limestone. I hope this provides one possible example of the creativity that's possible within geoscience, and an example of how you may travel through a geo-artistic process. I hope this inspires you to interact directly and physically with your environment, asking questions as you go along. What material is this? What is its texture, its weight? What does it feel like? Be bold and follow your intuition. Creativity has many forms and can be the thread that connects us to each other and the places in the world we all call home.